Hi everyone, Ron here, Variable Play, and welcome to another unboxing. Uh, if you guys can tell me if you can hear me fine, it's not too noisy at the moment, that'll be great. Thank you for joining me. So today I'll be unboxing Alice is Missing. Hi, Danilyn. Do you hear me well? So, Alice is Missing is a silent role playing game, which is intriguing just on that alone, right? What does it mean by silent role playing game? Most of the time, you won't be verbally talking to people. You will be talking to the other players in the game. Um, Hi, Mars. Yes, Alice is missing. I'm forcing myself to study it, which is why I'm unboxing and hopefully doing a bit of reading on the rule book later. Um, so it's a silent role playing game, mainly because majority of the play time you will be not speaking, but you will be texting or messaging each other through messaging apps, and that's how you would play this game. There's prompts throughout the game that will tell you um, certain things that happen. Then you guys will go back to texting. You can also text as a group. You text privately to different people, and then in the end, um, there will be sort of like a processing where you can finally speak. So that is Alice is missing, and let's see what's inside the box. First off, before we go inside the box, I think a lot of people were very intrigued just with the art alone. So you can see how very comic-like, very um, interesting in terms of how art style um, was chosen for this game. So, the game is published by Renegade, and it is designed by Spencer Stark. And the art is by Julian Griep, Griep and Caleb Cleveland. So let me just double check if I can hear myself correctly. Let me just double check. Okay, I could. Okay, cool. All right. So at the back of the box, in silence we find the truth. Alice is Missing is a silent role-playing game about the disappearance of Alice Briarwood, a high school junior in the small town of Silent Falls. During the game, players only communicate using their phones, sending text messages to each other as they unearth clues about what happened to Alice. With a full length licensed soundtrack and a structured narrative that unravels solely at the hands of the players, Alice is Missing is an immersive experience designed to be played in one session, it's the one shot, and without the need of a game master. So just a facilitator is what's needed. So there's a YouTube link for the whole soundtrack, and that soundtrack sort of gives you the feel um, about the game. So it's not necessarily play by post because it will be roughly around 2 to 3 hours of game time. Uh, there are a few ways of playing it. You can play it so as a group, you are in one area, you do the briefing, and then you can actually go to your separate spaces, sit down, have a nice cup of coffee, and then the game commences with just a little bit of a setup at the start, and then you are off to texting. You're off to messaging each other. So there's a common group chat, and then you can do private messages. If you guys want to play it sort of more anonymously, not really anonymously, but rather not mix it with your normal contact information, they do have a Discord template that you can use. And there's also a Roll20 full game actually that's playable. So you don't need to, I believe you don't need to buy this. You can buy the Roll20 version of this game and actually play it. So that's another way of playing it. Uh, just around it, it's just the font, the feel of it is that those sticker type where it's embossed. So that's the feel of this. All right, let's open it up. So you get a nice thick rule book, not, and then I've already removed the sleeves of the cards, and then a bunch of cards. I don't want to reveal too much about the cards because it might spoil us with the game. So, but mainly they are mostly prompts, different prompts, locations, characters, and other items that you might encounter. So that's pretty much the main piece. This is the time cards, and I believe the way this works is that there's a set of 60s, 70s, 80s, and you're gonna pick one randomly for your game. And so every 10-minute mark, I think you will be removing one of, you're going to reveal the card that was chosen for your game. So there is some replayability to this game actually, but they do recommend that it's played again with a different set of people. But there's some replayability because events that happen kind of differ depending on the cards that was dealt to you for the game. The art is very, very pretty. Yes. Let me just reduce my camera brightness. Okay, perfect. Where is my focus? Yeah, okay. So what I really found very interesting with this game is that there was 12 pages dedicated to simply 11 pages dedicated simply to the safety tools. So there's a around 4 pages that talked about the safety tools, the usage of X cards, so you're moving any piece of content in the game. This means across all the text messages that you might send, you can send an X to in that chat to signify that you want to remove a certain uh, piece of content and so forth. Um, they have lines and veils. You can establish lines you do not want to cross, or you can also veil certain topics that it's okay to have that alluded to but may not crossed. And it even supports an open door policy, meaning anybody who feels that they need to exit the game can exit the game at any time. And the facilitator will just be equipped with the tools to sort of connect that back into the story. So it is very careful and very detailed about how it handles the content because it could be a very emotional type of game, uh, which is why they really took quite a bit of care on covering a lot of those topics. So we would even tackle a bit on player privacy. And then finally, at page 13, I get the introduction of the characters and how sort of the game works. Uh, you have different relationships, how you're going to set up the chat, how the timer cards work, clue cards, hunches, and so forth. And then finally, you have a bit of the game guide on how you can do your interaction. So, yeah, a lot of it is, of course, played above the table. You can look at, you can see there, it looks like magazine paintings, right? And even the watercolor style um, art pieces. When the timer goes off, players may send one last in-character text message to the facilitator flips the debrief card and follows its directions to the end of the game. At the start of the game, you would actually go through one by one and leave a voice message to the facilitator's device. You could also do this in the Discord template and sort of leave the message for later use. Uh, that would be then played at the end of the game. So, yeah. So the setting up is finally here. See? 24 pages in before I get to see how the setup works. So running Alice is missing is as a facilitator isn't much different from the regular experience of a player, except that you will be the one to explain the rules, prepare the cards, clarify any confusion during the game, and keep things on track when necessary. The facilitator should therefore have a thorough understanding of the game and its rules. Because you're kind of playing as the game master, but you're also playing in the game, and you're just more familiar with the components. But I think once everybody is familiar, um, it would be sort of, yeah, open for everyone to run. Cool. All right. Well, that is a quick um, unboxing because I don't wanna open the cards. So as I mentioned, you guys can stay if you want. I will be reading through the rulebook and see if at least record that along the way. And if you guys want to hang out while I read it out loud and mispronounce a lot of things, feel free to stay. Okay, here we go. So, overview. Alice is Missing is a silent role playing game about the disappearance of Alice Briarwood, a high school junior in the sleepy Northern California town of Silent Falls. During the game, players use their phones to send text messages to each other as they unearth clues about what happened to Alice. The game runs over a single session of 2 to 3 hours. There is no formal game master, but one player will need to explain and facilitate the rules. In the first 45 minutes, the players will create their characters, their relationship to Alice, and their ties with each other. The next 90 minutes will follow the characters' text message conversations as they uncover Alice's fate. So you got the materials. Some of the supplies are included in the game. There are some that you actually need to print yourself. Mainly, it's going to be the posters of the missing Alice. You'll need to gather 3 to 5 players, quiet, dimly lit room, cell phones, or whatever device that you can use for your chat, a computer, something to have a main screen. Alice, and that's where you will be playing the audio soundtrack for the game. The Alice is Missing cards, the separate by type, and the printout of the character sheets, the missing person posters, a game guide. So the printouts are available in www.aliceismissingrpg.com. So facilitating the game. Through Though the game does not have a game master, one player should have a thorough understanding of the rules in this book. This person, called the facilitator, should refer to the facilitator guide, page 23. When explaining the game to the other players, the facilitator also takes on the role of Charlie Barnes, It knows the following background information about them before play begins. So Charlie Barnes moved away from Silent Falls with their mom at the end of the last school year after their parents divorced. They just arrived in town to stay with their dad for winter break and hoped to see Alice and the others while they were there. A few days ago, Alice stopped responding. They haven't heard from her since. Game style. Excluding the game setup, Alice is Missing is played live without verbal communication. Players inhabit their character for the entirety of the 90 minutes play session. Instead of speaking out loud to one another, you'll send text messages back and forth to the other characters in the group chat, as well as individually as though they aren't in the same place as you. Alice is Missing is a one shot, event style game. You won't get together every week to play out a continuation of the story you told the week before. Instead, you'll sit down with the other players for about 3 hours and explore the story together from beginning to end. After that, your group will say goodbye to these particular characters forever. Though you may certainly swap roles, shuffle cards, and play again in the same set of players, it is not recommended. It's not the recommended way to play. The same group will see opportunities that they didn't see before, but getting together a new group to play is likely to take the story in directions you didn't previously explore. The game is fully cooperative and encourages sharing information between characters. This will sometimes put characters at odds with each other, but exploring the tension between characters is an important part of the game. Finding Alice will always be the thing that brings you together at the end. Players should be ready to make things up on the fly, lean hard into their drives, and look for ways to make the narrative more interesting for everyone. Safety tools. Because of its immersive nature and dark theme, games of Alice is Missing can sometimes get into heavy or difficult content. The following safety tools are recommended, but you may use others if they better suit your group. So we have the X card. You may use the X card to remove any piece of content from the game. Since Alice is Missing plays over text messages, you may send an X to the chat to signify you want something removed from the game, or X colon and then the content to specify what you need to be removed. The player who introduced the content should delete their message if possible, and the game may continue. No one may challenge a decision to X a piece of content. If someone uses an X and it isn't clear what needs to be removed, the facilitator should ask them to specify out of character in parentheses. It's possible someone may be unable to type X or the chat moves so fast an X is overlooked. You may also X card verbally by saying X card content to remove content. Although it's preferable that players do not speak, their well being always comes before the game. Lines and veils. You're also encouraged to use a safety tool called lines and veils. Before the game starts, ask players if there is content they would like to line, meaning it will not come up at the game at all. Next, ask them if there is content they would like to veil, meaning it may come up, but it will never be in focus. Ostensibly, veiling it from play. As an example, a player might have a phobia of spiders and call for a line or veil on them in the game. A line on spiders would mean we should see no spiders, cobwebs, or anything with a spidery appearance. A veil on spiders would mean we might stumble through the cobwebs, but we shouldn't describe the legs, many eyes, or fangs of the spider living in there. Open door policy. Remind players that they may leave the game at any time. Ideally, they should tell the facilitator if they decide to leave, but it's okay if they cannot. If a player leaves the game, the facilitator should privately message them to see if they're okay. Usually, the game can continue if a player departs. Distribute their clue cards and keep playing, and invite that player to debrief when the game ends. Sometimes the game needs to stop, and that's okay. People are more important than the game. Gender and sexuality. Alice is Missing deals with the very real world scenarios, even though it's a game of fiction. The circumstances around missing women often involves violence, sexual violence, date rape, teenager adult relationships, partner abuse problems at home, victim blaming, and death. Some of these topics may touch upon players' lived experiences, so setting expectations and boundaries is perhaps the most important part of a game setup. Yes, people are more important than the game. Hashtag truth. Absolutely. Lines and veils can help establish players' comfort levels around these topics before the game begins. The following veils are suggested as a starting point, but you may line or adjust them to suit your group. So you can veil gore and violence, avoid describing in detail any harm done to Alice, veil sexual non consent. If it's not lined completely, veil sexual non consent, including drugging, coercion, physical force, and threats. Veil victim blaming. The characters may express upset toward Alice and her actions. However, her actions does not mean she deserves anything that happened to her. Yes. Yeah, I told you. The game, I haven't even explained anything about the game yet. It just gave us an idea what it is and really concentrated on all of the safety tools. But I think it's also very important for a game like this, mainly because there's no like RPG facilitator who's like very used to the game. You can buy the game and just read it. So I think they were also very careful to not create a negative player experience since it's more of like leaning towards a board game design with an RPG setting. But again, regardless, the attention to detail on how to instruct how to better secure and protect the people in the game is it's a pretty amazing piece of design. So let me continue. In fiction, stories of missing women often reduce a vulnerable person to a two-dimensional tool that explores the hurt felt by those who know her. Alice is Missing uses character creation and its mechanics to mitigate the tropes that would reduce Alice to a plot tool. It focuses on the network of relationships around Alice and the impact of her disappearance in the wider community, investigating the realities of a missing person in a small town. However, your group may change Alice's name and pronouns if you wish. Finally, the game includes queer characters connected to Alice who may or may not be out. Players can discuss and decide their character's sexuality and openness during character creation. However, you should also discuss the group's comfort around homophobia and outing other people without their consent. So, player privacy. Alice is Missing is using text messaging on phones as its primary tool for communicating during the game. The game therefore requires players to exchange their phone numbers so they can exchange in group chats or private chats. If your players are friends in the same area, that shouldn't be a problem, as it's likely you all have each other's numbers already. However, if you're playing at a convention or with a friend overseas, text messaging may be unsafe or impractical. If text messaging would cause the group problems, you can refer to a guide for online games. You'll still play on your phones in the same room, just with a different messaging platform. I would even suggest maybe like opening up a Signal account or like Telegram account specifically for this, and then you can burn the account after, so you can really have this one shot experience with that character. So introductions and characters. When everyone is at the table, the facilitator should go over the content warnings and walk the players through the safety tools. Once everyone is on the same page, the facilitator then reads the introduction card aloud and randomly chooses one of the missing person's posters. Then they place the character cards on the table and take Charlie Barnes for themselves. Each other player picks the character they want to play and places that character card in front of them. Put any leftover characters in the box, they won't be used in the game. Players can start thinking about the background and secret on their card. but should not share their answers yet with the table. Next, randomly pass drive cards to each player. Place any leftover cards back in the box. They won't be used in the game. Everyone takes a moment to think about how their motives impact their character. Starting with Charlie Barnes and moving clockwise, players then introduce their character's name and pronouns, the relationships to Alice, a physical description of their character, and their character's background prompt. Do not share other prompts yet. So the next four sections go through each step of setting up the game. The facilitator should read these sections to prepare for the game. However, when everyone is seated at the table, you should use the facilitator guide starting on page 23 to introduce the rules and game pieces. How secret how secret should I keep hidden information? How secret should I keep hidden information? Try to hold on to your secrets so you can reveal them during play. However, some hidden information may need to come out during character creation. Assume that the characters know no hidden information unless otherwise agreed with other players. For example, Julia's the secret girlfriend relationship is likely to come up during character creation. By default, no character should know about her and Alice being together. But when assigning relationships to each other, that knowledge can change based on the prompts choose to assign. Players may also discuss who may or may not know about the relationship outside of these established relationships as well. Once play begins, put aside the things you know as a player and focus on the character and their perspective. Relationships, voicemails, and chat setup. So next, players discuss their relationship prompts and assign those relationships to the other characters at the table. Basic relationships are open knowledge, but players are free to discuss further information in private if they prefer. After assigning relationships, players exchange phone numbers if they don't haven't done already. Everyone must change their players' names in the contacts to the name of the player's character instead. So renaming your character in the chat, your account in the chat helps in the immersion. Using the character name provides a more immersive experience and makes it easier to follow the text conversations. Though it may be tempting to not rename your contacts, do it. This aspect is vital to the game's experience and should not be skipped. The facilitator should now open a voice recording app on their phone. Each player, beginning with Charlie Barnes, records the last voicemail they left Alice before they knew she was missing on the facilitator's phone. The person playing Barnes should step into somewhere private, record the voicemail to Alice based on their character prompts, and then return to the room, pass the phone to another player, and so on. The message should refer or allude to their character's secret. Save these voicemails as they will be played out loud to the group at the end of the game. So, of course, in the game was probably designed before the pandemic era, so we probably would find other means to make voicemails in this time. Table, timer, and music. While players record their messages, everyone else should help set up the remainder of the game. Someone needs to shuffle all the suspect cards and location cards separately and place them face down on their respective piles within reach of all players. Set up a computer or TV where everyone can see it. Pull up the is Missing playlist from the Alice is Missing RPG.com website. Pause the playlist once it loads. This is your soundtrack and the game timer that tells people when to flip their clue cards. Check the computer, check that the computer is plugged in. Set the screensaver timer for a couple of hours so that the computer does not go to sleep during the game, and make the video full screen. Very thorough explanation, including setting the screensaver. Clue cards are starting hunches. Holding all of the clue cards face down, hand the 90-minute clue card to the person playing Charlie Barnes, and then randomly place a 10-minute clue card face down in the middle. Randomly take each clue card between 80 and 20. These cards form the clue deck. You should have 9 cards in total. Then pass these out clockwise around the table until they are all distributed. All players now have between 2 and 4 clue cards in front of them. It's okay if some players have more cards than others. They should stay face down until the table timer reaches the number on the back of the card. Do not flip them before this. Okay, so that's how you distribute the clue cards. If a player ends up with 2 clue cards within 10 minutes of each other, such as a 40 and a 50, they should switch clues with someone else until they don't. Okay. Then lay out one copy of each of the 5 different subject and location cards on the table. The suspect row should contain Brian Brown, CJ Wallace, Mr. Halbert, Ryan Groggins, and David Nelson. And the location row should also contain Callisto River, Callisto River State Park, the Dripping Dagger nightclub, the Old Barn on Cambridge Street, the lighthouse on the Howling Sea Cliffs, and the Silent Falls train station. Take turns choosing a card from these groups and describe why that suspect or that location is suspicious in relation to Alice's disappearance. Once all of these cards have been taken, the facilitator collects them, shuffles them back into their respective decks, and places them in the middle of the table. When the players draw suspect or location cards during the game, they lay them out face up in a row in front of these decks. Place the searching cards on the table within easy reach of all players. If a player decides to investigate one of the locations without being prompted by a clue card, they may draw a searching card to discover the interesting thing that they find when they get there. Okay. Players will now take a short break, get some water, and finish any last minute character work that they want to do before things get started. When everyone is ready, read the game guide out loud. The game guide provides a summary of what players ought to keep in mind while in character. Leave the game guide on the table in case players need to review it during the game. Draw particular attention to the notes and about characters not going to the same place together and the day that Alice went missing. So in the game, you're never allowed to be in the same place with another character. You're always in texting distance. The suspect and location card should contain a copy of each card. Make sure each deck has a total of 10 cards and that each card has a duplicate. Okay? Game guide. Oh, 41 pages. I will be here for a while. Today is Saturday, the first day of winter break. Everybody except Charlie starts the game knowing Alice was last seen on Wednesday, 3 days ago. Players may use parentheses, like this, to communicate anything out of character during the game. If somebody says something you want to remove from the game, you can reply X to signify that X has been X carded. It's okay to have moments where nothing happens. Silence can and will occur during the game. When the group chat goes quiet, consider initiating private conversations with other characters. 2 characters can never be in the same place at once. If they would be, create a reason in the narrative for them to never meet. Though we've set up a suspicion around every suspect and location, it's okay if some of these hunches don't play out during the session. The story should primarily focus on the suspects and locations that are drawn by players during the game. Make sure you tell everyone the information from your clue card. The answer to your clue card question will determine how the game's narratives evolve. After these 90 minutes, we'll be leaving our characters behind forever. Because of this, you'll want to find a way to reveal your secret to at least one other person. if not the whole group, by the end of the game. You should investigate and speculate based on the clues you receive, but you will not find the information that actually leads you to Alice until you hit a certain clue card trigger. You won't find Alice's cell phone or car unless you draw a card stating that you found it. Leave the suspect and location cards you reveal face up to their by their respective texts. If for any reason your character is hurt or killed and can't text for the rest of the game, you can give someone heading to your location information about what state they find you in using a direct private message. If this comes up in play, the card that triggered it will tell you what to do. Oh, so there could be like people that are removed from play. Um, wow. When the timer hits zero, players may write one last character message before the game ends. Playing the game. When everybody is ready for the game to begin, the facilitator starts Alice is the Alice is Missing playlist and sets the sound to the appropriate level. There will be a few minutes before anything happens for most players, so they should feel free to review their notes and close their eyes and relax. During this game, players may also grab their cards and find a place to get comfortable. They make sure just make sure you're at the table when it's time to flip your clue card. Once the timer begins, players should not verbally talk until the end of the game, unless absolutely necessary. When the timer starts, Charlie Barnes turns over their clue card immediately and follows the prompt. Shortly after, Barnes begins the game with a group text message to everyone. After Charlie sends the first text message of the game, everyone else may join the conversation. There may be flurries of texting during the game, and things might get confusing as to who is responding to what. Other times, there may be a lull in a conversation where nothing happens. Embrace these moments, as these are a realistic part of the ebb and flow of group messages. Players may communicate out of character by putting their message in parentheses. Players are encouraged to use both their main group chat and individual text messages during the game. Time is also fluid, so driving somewhere might take you 5 minutes instead of 20, and that's fine. Though you are playing for a 90-minute game, the text messages could have been over a course of a day or more. Whenever the timer reaches the time indicated on the back of the clue card, it's considered triggered. When a clue card is triggered, the player who controls that card flips it over and follows its directions. Often, this involves drawing a suspect or location card and incorporating it into the clue card prompt. The player should organically work this new information into the group conversation. Once that's done, the player should place the suspect or location card face up on the table next to its deck. The 30 and 20-minute cards direct the players to shuffle the revealed location or suspect cards and draw one randomly. The 10-minute card does not require the card pull, instead determines how players find Alice. Ending the game. When the timer goes off, players may send one last in-character text message to the in-character text message. The facilitator then flips over the debrief card and follows its directions to end the game. All right. So I think this is more of the facilitator guide already. And I think with that read through, we kind of get a good glimpse on how the game plays. I would be reading the rest of it further. Um, so again, for the ones who are staying, thank you. The ones who are viewing this in the future. So this is now, if you want to be the facilitator of this game, and maybe you bought the a copy of this, or you're running it using the Roll20 edition. Uh, this is something that might help you out. Okay, before that, let me just get a drink. Okay, so running Alice is Missing as a facilitator isn't much different from the regular experience as players, except that you will be the one to explain the rules, prepare the cards, and clarify any confusion in the game, and keep things on track when necessary. The facilitator should therefore have a thorough understanding of the game rules. Facilitator Guide provides the practical steps for introducing the game and its rules. It covers the same rules detailed up to this point, but in a way what makes them easy to explain to other players. However, you may still hit some stumbling blocks if this is your first time playing Alice is Missing. That's okay. Just make your best judgment call and continue moving forward. Content warnings. Alice is Missing provides players with an intense and emotional immersive experience, but it should not come at the cost of any player's safety and well being. Before organizing a game of Alice is Missing, tell your potential players about the content that may come up during the session. This game touches upon difficult topics that can be triggering. You can use any variation on the message below to give everyone an appropriate warning before they agree to play. Just a heads up. So this is the example that we provided. Just a heads up, the game inherently deals with a missing teenage girl in a small town and all the topics that can arise when that happens. Our characters will be the people closest to her attempting to unravel the mystery behind her disappearance. Because of this, themes like tense family dynamics, grief, death, violence, jealousy, and helplessness can often do come up during the game. If this sounds something you might be sensitive or triggered to by, please don't hesitate to let me know, even if this is something you only realize during play. Your safety and well being are always more important than the game. If any of your players indicate that they may be affected by these themes, ask them if there's something specific that could be avoided or mitigated using safety tools, as mentioned earlier, or it's best for them to sit this one out. Lastly, if you don't want to include the you find Alice's body card as a possible ending in the game, you are encouraged to remove it from the 10-minute deck. The game will still function perfectly well without it. Nice. So you can actually exclude murder. It's just really a missing person mystery. Okay, setting up the game. This section goes through how to explain the game to other players once you are at the table. At any time you see italized text like this, it means you should read it to the other players. Let's get started. Oh, so this is more of like setting it up. Hmm. So maybe, because I don't have to reveal the cards, but so before the players arrive, grab a small flashlight or lamp and put it out of sight. Oh, oh, okay. Put it out of sight from the other players for now, if you can. If the lights go out during the game, which can be triggered by one of the 45-minute cards, you want to place this on the table so that players can still see what they're doing. Then, place all the cards in their respective piles on the table and character records within easy reach. Stack them in the missing person poster in the pile face down and position the game guide off to the side. Lastly, put the X card in the middle of the table. You're now ready for your players to arrive. Oh, okay. So this section is really for the facilitator. Um, so if you just want to play, there's a bit of spoilers already here. So when everyone is seated at the table and ready to begin, read the following paragraphs out loud. So Alice is Missing is. Oh, so I think this is the same intro as what we said before in the very beginning. Yes. Discuss any of these topics. So I'm gonna skip that and I'm going to continue to discuss any of the topics necessary. Remind players that they may institute a line or veil at any time during the game. All they need to do is write line content or veil content in the chat or X content in the chat if the conversation feels like it's heading into that direction. Everyone has had a chance to add something if they wish and continue. So during the next 45 minutes, we will be setting up a fictional world, who we are, our relationships to Alice and each other in our town. Then we are going to spend 90 minutes inhabiting those characters, gathering clues, and texting one another as the story unfolds. I will explain everything as we go, but first I'm going to read the introduction card to set the scene in the scenario. So now grab the introduction card and read the text out loud. That card's information is also included below. So I think I don't need to read that, so I don't want to spoil it too much. So basically, there's an introduction card. Let's look for that. There you go. So there's an introduction card. Oh, and that's the X card. So there's an introduction card. Then grab the missing persons poster. So the missing person poster is not included in the game. It's on their website. You download and print it, or you can show it on your online play session. It basically is a magazine-like poster that you normally see on small towns. Person missing, contact information, that type. So have another player choose one of the flyers, turn it over, put the others away. You won't need them for the rest of the game. Then say the following. This is our Alice. We will learn more about her shortly. First, let's choose our characters. So grab the character cards and spread them out at the table for everyone to see. So let's look at the character cards. Character cards. That's the debrief. Those are not character cards. I think those are suspects. Maybe I should be looking at it like this. Those are locations. I think these are character cards. Okay. So location cards. Then I think these are the suspects. The debrief X card and the introduction. So this is what you will be reading when you start the game. And this is not, I don't think these are not the character cards. Hmm. I think the character cards are also, grab the character cards and spread them out to the table. Ah, okay. Here we go. There you go. This is the character cards. Okay. So you have Charlie Barnes, Dakota Travis, Jack Briarwood, Julia North, and Evan Holwell. So grab the character cards, spread them out at the table. Grab the Charlie Barnes. So I will be grabbing the Charlie Barnes. And I'm going to put it in front of me. The unused ones I remove. So there are a few sections in the Charlie Barnes card. So every card, I'm just going to hide that a little bit. So the first is the background question. You share that answer the group during the character creation. We'll get to that in a minute. So there's a background. Oh, okay. The next to that is a secret. Keep this to yourself for now. However, this secret should be revealed to at least one person, if not the whole group, during the game. So whatever secret I have there, we want to be able to reveal it for the rest of the people. Third is a voicemail prompt. So we will record the last voicemail we left Alice before we knew she was missing. I will play these voicemails at the end of the game as a reminder from where we came from. This prompt provides us a jumping off point for that voicemail. If you can work your secret into this recording, all the better. It can make for an impactful ending for the game. However, don't worry about this for now. We'll record our voicemails later in the setup. So grab the stack of drive cards. Drive cards. Are these the drive cards? Motive? I'm guessing it will be motive. Uh, grab the stack of drive cards and pass them randomly to each player face up. Discard any leftovers. You won't need them for the rest of the game. These gives us our drive and establish our relationships with one another. Okay. Hmm. Why is it face up? Okay. These cards give us the drive and establish the relationship with one another. You combine this drive card with the information in your character card to create a person you'll inhabit during the game. Take a minute to write down any initial thoughts about your character in the space below, their name, and your character record, their physical appearance, their favorite class, their home life. Uh, we also start brainstorming ideas for your background question and secret. However, your answer may be influenced by other people's responses, so don't get too attached to any idea quite yet. When you're done, could you put the pencil in the middle of the table? That will let us know that we can move on. Once all pencils are put in the center, begin the character introductions and background questions. Right. So let's share our characters, including their pronouns, their relationship to Aralis, and their answer to our background question. Do not share your secret. It should come out in play. Remember to listen to other people's answers. Adjust your answer as necessary to fit the fiction they've established. Feel free to ask players additional questions about their character. Make sure to take down any notes you like in their section on your character record. I'll start with the information specifically about Charlie. So I'll read about the Charlie Barnes portion. So I'll skip that. The facilitator should introduce Charlie's pronouns, physical description, relationship to Alice, and other important information. Then read the background question and give your answer. Moving clockwise, each other player should similarly introduce their characters. So great, now that everyone has an idea who one another is, we're going to assign relationships. Note that all of our characters are friends, or at least were at one time. Nobody should be excluded or feel shut out because they are not in the group. The game is more engaging if everyone knows each other well, even if you don't necessarily get along. Look at the two relationships you've been given. You'll assign each of those relationships to another character here. These relationships are usually one sided, meaning that just because you feel that way about the person doesn't necessarily mean they'll feel that same way back. Okay, let's look at that. So you can see here relationship. You've always been there for me. Alice's were given you. Oh, I guess that's. I don't know what the other one means. I don't think you like me. I've always wanted you to be my friend. Hmm. Now that makes more sense. So you're assigning that relationship to someone in the group. Okay. Now look at the two relationships you've been given. You get two. One, two, three. There's only five. So I guess ah, so it's two relationships. You have two items that are separate. You have your personal motive, and then you have the two items. So you tell somebody how they really feel about Alice. Then the other one is that you don't get along with them. Stuff like that. Sometimes assigning each other dissonant relationships can result in more interesting characters. Plus, relationship they did like to start with. After assigning relationships, you will exchange phone numbers, create your group chat. Pull out your phone and open up a blank text message where everyone can type their numbers into the tool line. Then pass your phone clockwise, basically creating a group chat. When everyone has added their phone number to the tool line, everyone should respond with their character names. Take a minute to change all of their contact names in those character names. Once done, pull up the voice recording app and put the voice messages. Okay. After recording your voicemail, you'll want to set up the remainder of the cards at in the game timer. Do so by following these instructions. So grab the location deck. So this is the location deck. I still don't have these things. So that one we don't know yet. These are characters. These are drives or motivation. Location and location and suspect. These I think are the suspects. Yeah, there. Those are the suspects. Grab the location and suspect decks, pull out one copy of each kind of card, and lay them out in two rows. You should have one row that contains. Oh, okay. Brian Brown, CJ Wallace, Mr. Halbert, Ryan Goggins, and David Nelson, and another contains the different locations. Okay. Next, set up your laptop and the TV for the Alice is Missing playlist. Pause at 90 minutes. Then take the clue cards and randomly draw one for each number without looking at them. So 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 20, and 10. The 90-minute card is to myself. Okay. I'm guessing. So you put it one row, the rest are shuffled on the side. You did mention shuffling it. So those are distributed. So for the location, there's two each. So it'd be something like that. to look something like that. So after that's been set up, then we set up the time. The way the time works is we we basically take a random 10, a random 20, a random 30, a random 35, 40, 45, 50, 60, 70, 80, and then 90. 90 goes to Charlie once. The rest, I think, is actually distributed to players. And you just can't have the two cards that are 5 minutes, 10 minutes in distance to each other. Okay, so when players return from the break, tell them not to turn over the clue cards. So I think these are the clue cards. Yep, the number ones are clue cards. So see now, you have cards and numbers at the back of them. These are clue cards. Make sure to leave them face down. Don't worry, we'll talk about them soon. But first, we're going to establish the starting conches. Okay, so you point to locations. Uh, you represent the places that Alice could possibly be in our game. We'll cover her location at the end of 90 minutes. So point to suspects. These are suspect cards. These represent people we suspect had to do something with Alice's disappearance. By the end of the 90 minutes, we will discover which one of them is the culprit. You can see all five of each type of card is laid out here. The rest of the deck is made out of duplicates of these cards. We're going to choose from these cards in front of us until they are all gone. And as we do, describe what about them makes us suspicious that they might be involved in Alice's disappearance. Oh, okay, okay, okay. So do you get a pair? Maybe. So as players take card, uh, you can use the appropriate spaces on your character record to take down notes if you wish. Does anyone have a person or place that this jumps out of them? Okay, all right. So these are sort of like your starting clues or ideas, hunches basically of what might have happened. As players start taking cards, they be sure to follow up with any question that would help them hone in on a very specific answer. Sometimes player will talk about why it's a suspicious place, but it's not necessarily tie it back to Alice's disappearance. If this happens, you will want to ask them how it relates to Alice and why she missing. Right? Players may also swing in the opposite direction, talking about why that place is important to Alice, but not why it's suspicious. You'll want to ask probing questions to get them there. Most importantly, don't tie any of these locations or suspects together during this phase. Oh, so you don't connect them yet. You don't connect them yet. You just say David Nelson, but not necessarily with the location. I think he's he was snubbed or whatever the reason why we think he's the suspect. So once all these cards have been taken, collect them again, shuffle them into their respective decks. Once these decks have been shuffled, place them in an area with easy reach for of everyone at the table. Also, it's like our way to get acclimatized to different locations. And by explaining um, you know, why we think Alice is at this location or why it's the ex-boyfriend. Uh, it gives us a good way to remember the characters and the locations. Wow, interesting way to use memory. So grab one of the spare 80-minute cards you didn't deal out and turn it over and read the full prompt. Okay, let's do that. So it tells me to flip a suspect card. So I'll draw one from the suspect deck and flip it onto the table. The name of the suspect it reveals. I'll now use this suspect to answer the clue card's prompt. I'll take a minute to process the information and generate an answer to the question in the blue box. I'll find a way to organically communicate this information to the character or the group chat. Okay. Give an example of the this. So you remember Alice finding out about someone's dark past. So the ex-boyfriend um, used to not like playing board games. That's his dark past. So give an example of this depending on the prompt. If the suspect is Ryan Groggins and the clue card is the person who posted the suspicious to social media, it could be, guys, did you see Ryan Groggins' Instagram? He's been posting pictures of him and Alice every day since Tuesday, but she wasn't missing yet on Tuesday. So you wanna sort of give people the clue, but like in a thematic sense. So shuffle this suspect back into the deck. Location cards work the same way. Location cards work the same way. To reveal the location and use it as the inspiration of the prompt on your clue card. Once you've done it, this leave the suspect or location card near the deck. Don't take it back to your seat. At some point in the session, in this is critical to the game, the way the game plays out. One of you will get a clue card that tells you to shuffle up suspect or location cards on the table and reveal one. This will be the place where Alice is found or the suspect is who is responsible. One of the clue cards will also tell you to give the 10-minute card to someone here. Follow those instructions, and you can always send me a message if you have questions. If you receive the 10-minute card, do not flip it until the timer hits 10. Using the clue, suspect, and location cards, it's the most mechanically intricate piece of the game. So if there are any questions before we continue. Answer any questions, review any mechanics if needed. This is sometimes a lot of information to process at once, so don't be afraid to walk through the whole thing again as necessary. As few. Finally, point to the searching cards. Searching cards? Oh, these are searching cards, I think. Okay. The last step we're going to talk about is the searching card. Sometimes your clue card will tell you to go to a specific location to do or find something. If it does, you should do that. But if you want to go somewhere on your own without a card prompting you, you may do it. You may travel there and draw a searching card. The contents of these cards really can really impact the game. So you should only use them if you feel stuck. Like you'll get there and there's nothing for you to do or find without making something up. So that's where these cards come in. At any time, you may inform the group you're heading to a location and draw from the searching deck to see what you find there. As a reminder, use these opportunities sparingly. when things slow down or you want to throw a wrench in the plot. Any questions? To set the searching cards next to the 10-minute card in the center of the table, then grab the game guide. Lastly, we're going to go through the game guide, which will sit right here in the table in case you need to refer to it. Some of these things we've gone over, but they're here for a friendly reminder. So once this is done, continue with the paragraph below and get to getting started. So I know that's a lot of information at once, but the game guide will stay on the table for reference at all times. And if you have any questions or confusion, you can always text me out of character. We are here we're just about ready to start. I'll flip my 90-minute card as soon as the timer begins, which will have me send a group text message of the game. We'll have a few minutes before you get that text from me, so feel free to find a space in the room to relax, review your character record, and mentally prepare. You might also want to think about the relationships you're most interested in exploring during the game, and who you might want to send your first private message once the play begins. As a reminder, you only need to be near the table when flipping your clue card. So feel free to spread out as soon as the music starts. No one should speak for the entire 90-minute period, but you can always message me if anything comes up. Does anyone have any last questions before we begin? When you're ready to begin the timer and set the music to the appropriate level and over your 90-minute card. The game is afoot. So keeping things on track. On top of playing Charlie during the game, the facilitator has the added responsibility of keeping the game on track. The game usually runs itself once the timer begins, but every so often you'll need to intervene so that the game functions as intended. We'll cover a few of the most common things to look out for and how to best remedy them. Okay, so players miss their clue cards. This happens more often than you'd imagine, as players can get into multiple intense conversations or forget to look at the timer. A private message their way is a gentle reminder to flip their clue card, and usually it's the best way to handle this. I agree, especially if the game is at um, run physically, then people are gonna be more intensely in the messaging. If we're doing this online, everybody's like looking at the same screen. So yeah, players do not convey the appropriate information from their clue cards. So each clue card should point to their location or suspect along some revealing information about Alice's disappearance. If someone flips their clue card but doesn't introduce a location or suspect, check in with them out of character to make sure they're working on it. The player might simply be working up to an opportunity to reveal the information, since it can be a lot of pressure to do so organically. This check is in sh- the check this check-in should be a gentle reminder so you don't put more pressure on them. Assure them they don't need to rush and that you're just checking if they're working towards incorporating that information to the story. Hey guys, guess what? I saw this commercial about this location, Callisto River. It's just forcing it into the conversation. Um, Players say two things that seem contradictory to one another. So, in Alice is Missing, players will often ask to create information quickly and with limited guidance. Under these conditions, they may say something that contradicts previous discoveries about Alice's disappearance. The most appropriate recourse is to figure out in character how both statements have truths to them, or how those characters could believe they're both right. Yeah. If two characters said that they were alone with Alice on Wednesday night, perhaps Alice was left one character to be with another and then didn't tell them about their movements. Memory is fallible, especially under stress, and our perspective is almost always an incomplete picture of reality. If the contradictory statements cannot exist together, you can always reconcile them in an out of character chat. This should be the last resort. Players take their location and suspect cards with them when they leave the table. Sometimes player will accidentally bring the location and suspect card back to where they're sitting instead of placing it with the others below their respective decks. If this happens, just ensure that they put it back before the 30-minute card is flipped. They are due to be shuffled. The 10-minute card may end up with someone who isn't actually headed to find Alice. This situation occurs rarely, but sometimes a character may make it sound like they're on their way to Alice's location, revealed by the 20-minute card. Retrieve the 10-minute card that tells them how they find Alice when they get there. And then, for whatever reason, decide they actually are not the one who is going to go. That can cause problems for the end of the game. When a character steps forward to actually go to find her at the revealed location, make sure that the 10-minute card goes to them instead. That way, they have the information they need about when about Alice when they arrive. Okay, debrief, debrief your players. So when the timer goes off, turn the music down a little bit and play the voicemails on your phone over the top of the final song. Oh, okay. If the song ends before the voicemails are done, that's okay. Continue listening to the rest of the voicemails. Once this is done, turn over the debrief card on the table and follow its instructions. It will guide you how to end the game. Check in with the group to make sure everyone is feeling okay, regardless of how the game ended. The game can bring out unexpected and difficult feelings, so be mindful of that as you go through the debrief process. Spend as much time as necessary talking about the game, those feelings, and what transpired over the 90 minutes to help players ground themselves in reality. Cool. So, last two. Playing online. Playing Alice is missing virtually over the internet can present its own logistical challenges, but the trade off can result in even more unique and immersive experience. There's specific walkthroughs for online games of Alice is Missing available in the www.alicesmissingrpg.com. But below are some general guidelines to help things moving along. Most change this to online format occurs before the 90-minute begins. Once the timer starts, the game plays similar to the in-person. The biggest danger to run out into here is time. Online games can take longer to set up because the game requires a significant amount of emotional labor during the game. Just the game time to can mean the difference between players staying emotionally collected at the climax of the story and then checking out just as the most demanding part of the game ramps up. To help mitigate this problem, you'll want to do the bulk of your character creation before you get together to play. Hmm. Okay. All of the materials needed to do this pre-game setup is found in Alice is Missing. The first thing you will do is randomly choose a missing person's poster, send it to the group, letting them know that this is the Alice that they're looking for. You'll then give them available options for their characters. You can using the downloadable character cards. Ask the facilitator, keep Charlie Barnes for yourself and only send the other four to them. You may use a variation on the message below with feedback. When players claim a character card, send them a random drive card fairly quickly so that they can get into character. After distributing all these drive cards, you may use any variation of on the message below to continue. You will then provide the answer to your background question with some level of detail to help set the tone for everyone. After everyone shares theirs, as well create a group text. If there isn't one already, collect the voicemails. You can use the message below as guidance on how to tell players. Once you have established your characters and receive all the voicemails, yours included, you are ready to set up the online platform you're using to play. Make sure that the following specific instructions for that platform to ensure the best experience for the players. All right. Inspiration and acknowledgement. So Alice is Missing's theme and tone is heavily inspired by video games Life is Strange, Gone Home, and Oxenfree, as well as the movies and TV shows such as Searching, Riverdale, Winter's Bone. It's also drawn on many existing role playing and live action game systems such as Fiasco, Out of Dodge by Jason Morningstar, On Heroes by Joanna Piancastelli, and Kids on Bikes by Doug Lewandowski and Jonathan Gilmore. If you'd like to contact me about the game and share your stories, give me feedback, you can find me at Spencer Stark on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you. And there you have it. Uh, Alice is missing. I think I have a better idea how I would be able to run this game already. Hopefully, you guys get a glimpse too. And if you are interested in possibly running it for online play, you could check out their website. Uh, but I am excited to try this game out. Probably will be running it here at Variable Play. One of these days, we just need to set up a schedule. And as the game mentioned, for online play, it would be best if I do a bit of the character setup faster. I'm also debating whether I want to do um, the 90 minutes on stream because people will be just watching people not speaking, and maybe um, actually pick up the stream when we're about to end. So I'm still debating how to best run it, or how can I keep people in the loop from what's happening. Because if we are running it through the Discord um, template, there is a way for me to share what's going on in the different chats. So as the facilitator, I have two ways of playing it. I can play the facilitator that is just really the facilitator, and my online presence is I can jump in from one chat to another, or I'm also playing, uh, in which case I shouldn't be knowing the other people's chats. Otherwise, it kind of would spoil that experience as well. So there you have it. That is Alice is Missing. Thank you, everyone who stayed with me as I unbox and read the rule book for the game. I hope this gives you a good glimpse of if this is something interesting for you. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. Have a good evening. Bye.